Hello folks, Matt here, UFOs around the world. Now we're going to be talking about Past, Present and Future, which was a documentary in 1974, which was written by Robert Emenegger and produced by Alan Sandler, I think he was called. And what we're going to hear in a minute is a recording from James Fox and Alan Sandler regarding what he's seen on this alleged videotape. This videotape was supposed to show a landing at Holloman Air Force Base. And what happened was these aliens then got off the craft, and then there was a meeting that went on there and stuff like that. And there was an 8-second clip that was shared, and that was spoken about as well. And we're going to get into that in a bit. But we're going to play this clip first with James Fox. He's on Jesse Michels' show. The link will be in the description so you can watch the full one of this if you've not seen this one. Where James wanted to be put in that moment where Alan Sandler speaks to him about what he's witnessed here and stuff like that. So let's just take a listen to this.
Put something out there, it was thoroughly researched, and there was substance to it. So I read one article, and she had I think some military officials that were interviewing. They might have been anonymous, and then another one was a pilot. So it's two separate articles about this landing at Holloman. So that was pretty much the first credible time I'd really heard about it, right? Because I just quickly dismissed it in the past. Well, I'm going, all right, well, I'm investigating a case, the landing case in Socorro. Holloman is just a stone's throw away from Socorro, where the crow flies. I believe that the creatures, that Socorro happened. It was the case that turned around Hynek. Why not have cameras rolling and have it happen just, at White Sands or Holloman Air Force Base, which is really close by? So I was open to it. Mm-hmm. Then I watched, I'll give you the truncated version. I watched the documentary UFOs Past, Present, and Future by Emenegger and Alan Sandler. And that talks about an event that may have happened or that could happen, may have already happened, or maybe it, or it could happen. Mm-hmm. And that was about the landing. And
so just to interrupt there, so the story goes that Robert Emenegger was given this footage, or Alan Sandler was given this footage, and it was of the real landing showing these aliens getting off. However, at the last minute, they took the footage and they had to basically make the footage up then. So the story was that they was originally going to make this past, present and future and put real legitimate footage in there, supposedly. Okay, so that's why he's being a bit thingy there, saying, it could be this, could be that.
In Holloman Air Force Base, and that the beings got out and interacted with the base commanders. So I was like, this is interesting. They had
When you say may have happened or could happen,
that's the way they phrased it in the film.
Okay, so they're being a little like, truth and fiction.
Yeah, it was like, this might have happened already.
Yeah.
Or maybe it will happen.
A little plausible deniability.
Yeah. And everything else was so carefully choreographed in the movie. They had unprecedented cooperation with active and retired military personnel going on to Air Force bases. Like, these guys, something was up with that movie during that time, and they had unprecedented access. So anyway, so then I get in touch with the filmmakers, Emenegger. I interview him, and he's like, "Yeah, that that event really happened. We were gonna get the video and feature it in the film, and then the last minute they pulled it, whatever." And so then I'm talking to Alan Sandler about it, and this is going on over a couple of year period. And Alan's like, "Well, I saw the film." "Excuse me, you what?" He goes, "I saw the film." I said, "The one at Vandenberg Air Force Base with the no, the landing at Holloman." I said, "You saw the film," and I was driving my car. And what I do a lot of times is I like to close my eyes and listen to words and have those words recreate the imagery in my brain. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like I'm reliving the experience through them, right? Yeah. So I pull the car over. I said, "Alan, what did you see? I need every detail. Like, what did it look like?" He goes, "It might have been a training video. I don't know, but it was a real flying saucer. And there were 3 flying saucers that came in over the base. It was, I don't know what time of day, but it was daylight. And the film, there was film of 3 discs at a relatively high altitude coming in over the base, and then 2 peel away, and they were escorted by military jets, and then 1 comes down." He said it was like a leaf almost. He thought it was in trouble the way it was flying, but I've heard that description.
Pay attention to that description where he says it comes down, it wobbles. It'll make sense later on in the video.
From a lot of people that it kind of
flutters like
floats down like that, right? So that he described it. He said it was kind of floating, and he's like, "Well, it looked like it might have been in trouble." And I'm thinking to myself, I've heard that before, the way it's coming down. So it comes down. He goes, it landed, and he goes, James, it was just like a sci-fi movie. Those doors just open, and there's no seam or anything. He said that's what it looked like. It opened and dropped, and then two uh, individuals, beings, aliens, whatever you want to call them. This is according to Alan Sandler. He told me this. They came out and they flanked the stairs on either side, and then the main guy got out, and he had like a Egyptian. He described it as Egyptian. The description in the film is very similar, and a being with big eyes and vertical slits, tall, Egyptian hair or head gear, I don't know. Vertical eyes, vertical slits, big eyes, big nose, mouth almost non-existent, little slit, very small chins, and came out and he said he had a device that he thought was an interpreter, to help communicate, and that they met with military officers, and then they got into a Jeep, and then they went off, and then the film just ended with the disc just sitting there on the base. And Paul Shartle at Norton Air Force Base showed it to him because Paul got a call from a guy named Colonel Colonel Coleman. It was a guy I interviewed who was public relations at the Pentagon in the 70s. I interviewed Coleman about it, and his story, his recollection. But anyway, he had called, I guess, the base. Hey, these guys are doing a documentary on UFOs. Cooperate, give them access, whatever. Not realizing that Paul Shartle had just processed some film of this landing at Holloman. So Paul happens to show it to Alan, and Bob wasn't there that day at Norton Air Force Base, and men in suits either later that day or the very next morning showed up, confiscated the footage, and said, "Don't ever talk about it." And
Do you know who the men in suits work for?
no idea. I'm just telling you what he told me. And Paul Shartle, a few years later, was involved with a head-on collision with him and his wife. He was dead.
Oh, Jesus.
And so he's gone. Paul Shartle did go on a TV show. You can Google it with Bob Emenegger talking about it.
Are you conspiratorial at all about the head-on collision? Or?
I mean, it's a bummer.
Definitely a bummer.
Yeah.
But
and then Alan didn't tell Bob Emenegger. And then when Alan told me, I've actually got video footage of it somewhere. I did and Bob's dead now. Bob Emenegger's dead, but I did an extended interview with Bob Emenegger.
This craft came in. There were three of them. One of them wobbled down to the ground and landed, and apparently the base was alerted to it. And
so this story for years, like I first came across this story, early 2000s, right? Got to be 2000, 2001, right? And it's always stuck with me. And it was only up until about 3-4 years ago, I lost interest in the story, and I'm gonna show you why in a minute.
went out to meet it, and this craft door opened.
Apologies if it's a bit low. It's just the audio on that.
Normal looking, no, they weren't normal looking, but short, 5 foot high people came out with sort of a blue-gray complexion, and they had some sort of a headgear on, and he's describing this to us.
So Alan, I get on the phone. Was I in Florida? Anyway, I got him on the phone and I said, "Bob, did you know that your partner, the guy you did the movie with, saw the landing footage at Holloman Air Force Base?" And he didn't know. And Alan never told. He's like, "Well, you never told." Anyway, I got the two of them talking on the phone about it. But Alan swears up and down that he saw that footage. What did you see on the film? Was it color? Was it black and white?
It was black and white.
It was black and white.
The one I saw, yeah, it would be a black and white print, but it was nothing other than what we said in the book. We see this thing, this round thing, and it wasn't that stable, funny part. And it landed, and a door opened, and guys come out looking like they were outer space guys.
I think about if I could I sway a jury at this point? I don't know. But based on the research that I've done on the Holloman landing case, I kind of believe it happened.
yeah,
And so that I hear this other story that I'm reporting on in the program now. Yeah, to those skeptics out there, I can't prove that it happened. I certainly can't. but we have a date, we have a location, and we have active at the time, on duty military personnel. You know, let's dig into it further.
For sure. Yes.
You know, it's too significant. If it happened, it's too important to just dismiss because of a lack of evidence. Well, it's hard to look into something if you don't know about it.
Of course. Yeah, no, and I think widening the surface area on something and saying, I
Right?
think it's true,
Yeah.
but we also need to look more into it
Yeah,
is a very valid form of
Right? I
journalism.
mean, it's like, just like Varginha, you know, I'm hoping additional witnesses will come forward, and they have.
So we're going to leave that now for now. We're going to go to this interview here. So this was in 2017 in Toronto, and it was with Grant Cameron. Grant Cameron held an interview in his hotel room to discuss a piece of this footage that apparently was left in and supposedly shown a UFO landing at Holloman Air Force Base. So we're just going to play this here. So let's crack on here straight to this one. Big screen it for you boys and girls.
And I was involved in one of the key stories that confirms that they're not covering up, and that was the story of the Holloman Air Force Base film. This is one of the stories I put in the book to say, if you believe they're covering up, you've got to explain this. 1969, the U.S. government, Air Force, shuts down Blue Book, and they say, okay, CIA is already out of it. They've already said, we're not interested in UFOs, we don't study UFOs. 1969, the U.S. Air Force shuts it down, and what I say, they're not shutting it down, they're moving it into the black world. They're shutting down the white world to allow them to research in the black world without having to answer for every stupid UFO sighting. And so they shut it down, and at 1969, they're off the books. They say, there's no ET, there's no cover-up, there's no evidence of withholding documents, that sort of stuff, and no national security implications. And that's it. So they shut it down, and in 1973, they go to Bob Emenegger and Alan Sandler, two producers in Los Angeles, and they ask them to do a UFO documentary. They have 8 documentaries, defense documentaries, and at the end, we want you to do this other one on UFOs. And Bob Emenegger, a total UFO skeptic, said, "What do you mean this is for real?" And at that point, the security manager, Paul Shardle, at Norton Air Force Base, said, "What would you say if I told you that we had landed, that an alien ship landed at Holloman Air Force Base, 6 o'clock in the morning in May of 1971, and we filmed it from 3 different vantage points, 2 on the ground, 1 in a helicopter, and we will allow you to use the film for your documentary." So here you go. And what Bob said is, he's still not interested in UFOs. He watches Comedy Channel. He's not interested in UFOs. He said, these people are all crazy. There's no cover-up. I was able to go wherever I want. He went into the Pentagon without signing in. He was able to go and talk to all the Blue Book heads. He was talking to Art Lundahl, who was the big CIA guy for UFOs stuff. He said there was no cover-up. I could ask whatever I want, and it was true. He could ask wherever he wants. So he puts his documentary, and then what happens at the end of the documentary is they say, we can't use the film. We can't allow, it's the Watergate, it's bad timing, we can't allow you to use the film, and they pull the film. At least that's what I thought. Then when the film gets released, it's a documentary called UFOs, Past, Present, and Future, $250,000 from the MacArthur Foundation, and then the MacArthur people say, oh, Mr. MacArthur's having trouble with his friends. He's getting a hard time about doing this UFO thing. We'd like you to pull his name from the credits, but you can keep the money. And so here it works. And so they get the money. It's a secret source for the money, comes in, and then they put the documentary out, and then I find out that there's 8 seconds of the Holloman Air Force Base film in the film. So Bob's my friend. I phone up Bob. There's 8 seconds of film in there. And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, you told me they pulled the film. You told me it was sent back to the Pentagon. And he said, well, it did. And he told me this whole story about the guy going across the country in this small Datsun, taking the film back to the Pentagon. I said, but there's 8 seconds of film in the documentary. And then he said the key words. He said, but it didn't show anything. And I said, oh no, he said, it's background. And I said, background? What do you mean it's background? And he said, it didn't show anything. And what it is you see the hills of Holloman, and you see this object, this brilliantly lit object at 6 o'clock in the morning coming over the hills, but it's in a distance. So you don't see it close up, and you don't see the alien when the alien gets out. That's the classified part. So they want you to know that Holloman happened, and they allowed them to use the 8 seconds of the film, but the rest of the film, the classified part, was pulled.
Right, okay. So Big screen in a minute. So you've just seen it, and Grant Cameron said that they left 8 seconds of the clip in, showing this object wobbling down. Quite similar to the description that Alan gave to James Fox in that thing. However, as much as I believe in UFOs, aliens, interdimensionals, I'm not here to just say everything's fucking real, right? I'm here to debunk stuff as well. And someone did. And that somebody, let me get the video up if I can find it. I have found it. He's here. I'm going to play it for you now. So everybody, take a look at this.
But if the shot isn't part of the legendary lost film, what does it actually show descending from the sky? What was coming in to land at Holloman that day? Well, I'm happy to say I can answer this somewhat definitively. I recently acquired a copy of the officially released 2007 DVD of the documentary. I quickly fast-forwarded to the landing footage and was momentarily stunned by what that extra detail revealed. It's a plane. The details are faint, but the wings and landing gear are unmistakable. The YouTube compression might completely obliterate the details here, so I'm going to let it play a few times while I tweak the settings on the footage. It won't be pretty, but I'm hoping one of these combinations will help the wings and the landing gear survive the compression.
You can clearly see it's a jet. You can clearly see it. You can see the little bump there at the top. You got the nose, which is the bright light as it comes in, so it's head on, so it's covering. As it's coming in from a distance, you can't see it. You can see the wings and the landing gear either side of it. What my suggestion would be is I set up my YouTube for the TV. That's why I have this box here, so I would recommend watch it on the TV. If you're on your mobile phone, turn it landscape.
Process. Now, you may be wondering, what is the round white glowing thing? And that's a good question. My first instinct was that the film was being run in reverse, and that what we're actually seeing are the plane's afterburners as it flies away from us. But the landing gear is clearly down, and if the plane was heading away from us, the landing gear would have already been stowed. So it's likely coming in for a landing rather than taking off. Now, we know the base had F-4s at the time, so it's logical to wonder if the incoming plane might also be a Phantom. And as shown in this footage, the F-4 Phantom had an intensely bright light that was sometimes used during landing, strong enough to flare a camera lens even in broad daylight. Is it possible that this light is what we're seeing in the footage? Well, let's do a quick comparison between the craft in the footage and a photo of an F-4 landing with its light on. It's purely subjective, but that looks like a pretty close match to me. The wingspan, the width of the landing gear, the placement of the light, the way the nose peeks out above the light, it all seems to line up pretty well. But there's no way to say for certain, and at this point, I don't think the type of plane is very important. What we can now say with a fair degree of certainty is that the landing shot in the documentary is not footage from the fabled Holloman UFO landing film.
So there we have it on the 8-second clip, which for decades was said to be a real alien UFO ship landing at Holloman Air Force Base. Even myself was taken in. I was telling people this is real footage, but I'm not too up my own arse to turn around and say, you know what, I was wrong, and I was happy to see that someone actually debunked it, which made me able to think, okay then, maybe the whole story's bullshit. Maybe the whole story is like bullshit, because if people are so gullible to just think that that's a piece of the real footage of it, it's a supposed real footage of that landing, then the whole thing could have just been bullshit. Just because somebody said, what if I told you that this really happened, doesn't mean it's real. Just because they're old and they've got grey hair doesn't mean they're more credible. People seem to think that. But, oh, they're old people. Why would they... Deluded people get old as well, you know. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so... The Holloman Air Force story is a fascinating one. It really is. I do recommend you go and watch the documentary. However, when you get to that, the thing that's been pushed around that clip is real, and that's like a big piece of the smoking gun evidence, we now know it's not. And you'd be surprised how many people don't actually know about that debunk. And that was from 2023. So it's only a few years ago, right? So people have been thinking that that's been real till this guy actually got that CD, put it in, and got a clearer video of it. So for 30 odd years, 40 odd years, people have thought that that's real UFO landing, and it's not. So I like to share that. So for people that don't know and did not know that, please drop a comment saying thank you, Matt. We appreciate you. You know, anything you need in life, we will help you going forward and stuff like that. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, boys and girls. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Let's have a laugh together. What I'm going to say now is, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'll see you on the next one. I am going to do a couple of reptilian ones over the next few days. What I'm doing is, yes, I have changed my t-shirt, but the last 3 videos you've seen, I've had this t-shirt on, right? And it's not because I'm a tramp, it's because I've scheduled the videos. Yeah? So I've done 3 videos today, which have been scheduled. That's why. So don't be thinking, I changed his fucking shirt. I can debunk that shit for you. It's scheduled. Today is the 7th of November, and this will be going out on Sunday. So I hope you're all having a good Sunday and a nice Sunday dinner. And yeah, I'm going to love you and leave you and see you on the next one.